What is my next challenge in daring to be human?
How do I connect with life?
How can I let go of my need for fixed answers in favor of aliveness?
How do I live free from the experiences that shaped me?
How can we be the change the world needs right now?
Join us weekly for stony conversations about life.
It is our mission to allow life itself to reveal to us the answers. Welcome to Chasing Thoughts. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Chasing Thoughts. Today, Keith and I are going to talk a little bit about another change that we're making in our podcast. And if you followed us from the beginning, you have really been able to witness something that I'm so grateful for. And that is Keith and I co-creating in real time, responding to our intuitions to guide this podcast. And for me, it's the first time that I've operated with another person like that. And it's given me so much hope for all the collaborations in my future. Right? Because I love this style of just being flexible enough to change things when they no longer align and find a deeper truth and more authenticity.
That was so perfectly said.
Yeah. So Keith and I, we canceled the guests for the rest of the year because we wanted things to be more in alignment with the changes that we're trying to make in our lives and embracing and leaning into. And that's really this idea. And man, well, hold on, let me finish the idea and then I'll tell you my aside. It's this idea of what if your life is art? What if your work is art? And how does that change the way that you regard it? And this came up for me the other day. In my head, I was thinking, damn, I gotta like record videos today for social. Okay, I'll just, like ask Chat GTP to come up with questions for me and then try to record it and then get it online. And then I'm like, what if this was art? I'm like, no way would I treat it that way. If this was my art that I was giving to the world, I would sit until I found something that wanted to like be said from my intuition, right? I would craft a beautiful video. And it totally changed the way I thought about it.
Yeah, I've been going through the same thing, and it's such a cool thing because I'm going through like a whole reset.
Yeah.
And like you would say, well, like with like how we're creating this, following our tuition in real time, and it just made me think about, we have the external and the internal world. So while we're doing this externally, having the guests on and stuff, internally we're also kind of built, and that's where the building really is coming from.
Yes. Yes. And that's so important because I believe that goals are actually achieved inside, not
Yeah.
outside, right? And everybody has this concept of, I want this thing, I'm going to go get it and do these outer actions. But if you don't do the inner stuff too, you ain't going to get there, right? Like you have to be a different person to get different results.
Yeah. Your inner mindset, your inner guide is going to determine the amount of energy that you put into that goal.
Yeah.
So when we're already saying to ourselves, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. I know there's a name for it. I just did it the other day. I asked Sandy where something was. I was looking in the cabinets and I was telling myself, like, I don't know where she puts anything. Because like everything has a place, but that place changes week to week. So as I'm going to the cabin, I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to find this. It's gonna be hidden behind something, and I have an issue with moving things to look behind them. And sure enough, I didn't see it. And Sandy comes, and I'm like, I can't find it. And she walks around, looks, and reaches to the shelf. I was eye level with the shelf, and it was right there.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, you know, like when we have that mindset going into a task that we want to accomplish, something that we want to do, and we're telling ourselves all the reasons why we can't, which come naturally,
Yep.
the energy output is not going to be sufficient enough to reach that goal. And then when we fail, that's going to be further proof that I can't do it. So it's this vicious cycle of tearing ourselves down.
Absolutely. And I think your belief system about others and the world comes into play. Your story reminded me of a story of my own where I would go to the gym every morning, and every time I was in the locker room, my thoughts were something like, look at all these bitches. They think they're so hot. What a horrible place. And I'd be like, I love going to the gym, but I hate the locker room and all the people. Right. I had this like horrible experience of being around that kind of person. I did a bunch of personal development work, got divorced, right? Like all these things happened in my life, started going back to the gym again. And one day I was sitting there and I thought, everybody here is so nice. I'm so lucky to be a part of this community. And as soon as I thought it, it was like, bam, I remembered when I had thought that other thought. And it was the same community of people, right? And so it's like that when we think about opportunities when we're doing business and we think, oh, that person's going to say no to our contract, or that person would never consider working with us. And we sabotage ourselves before we even have a chance.
Yeah.
And it's so unconscious. A lot of times you don't even know you're doing it. You think this is just the way it is. And that's why I think, cultivating investigation is so damn important.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our beliefs, they're what guide everything, you know, and being able to understand. I don't like using the term waking up, you know, just because it's become so cliche,
Right.
but waking up to the idea that, you know, when we're born, that philosophy, tabula rasa, you know, and blank slate. And then our thoughts are designed by the experiences we begin to have, almost like micro experiences, every little thing when we're a baby, you know, and then as we're growing. I saw this freaky experiment. I want to say like University of Missouri or something, where they had a bunch of babies and they released boa constrictors into this little playroom, and the babies were like touching the snakes, but the babies were watching the parents.
Mm.
And the doctor was explaining how babies are amazing. They're like animals, how closely they watch all of our expressions. So if the parent has an expression of fear, the baby will be afraid of the snake. But because the parents were trained, and he said the snakes were trained. I'm like, how do you train a snake though, dude? Like, don't eat this baby. You know what I mean? Like, I guess you give them treats when they don't eat the babies, or something. But and so the parents had gone through this whole thing where they weren't showing that emotion of fear, and the babies were completely fine. Where if I was in that room, dude, I would be like running through the wall like the Kool-Aid man trying to get out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating on a lot of different levels, how babies pick up on it and how the snakes didn't seem to mind the babies when they were at peace. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we have all these like micro experiences that begin to channel our thoughts particular ways. Then plus because the negativity bias that's built in,
Yeah.
it usually goes that way. But we can choose to start building new belief systems by creating new habitual thoughts that are different. And they're going to feel stupid and different in the beginning.
And yeah, awkward and untrue and like you're faking it, right? Like
Yeah.
that fraud feeling will come up and you have to just go with it and work through it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first things, exercises that I had learned is from this book called Buddha's Brain, where it's like a gratitude practice where you spend time, not a lot of time, it could be just 5 minutes, you know, but you're grateful for like something during like in the day, um, your family, your loved ones, your acquaintances, yourself, and then somebody you don't like.
Mm.
And I would go out and smoke, and I would do this practice because we where you direct your internal world, like weed magnify. It's like the James Webb Space Telescope, man. Like it just sees into the deepest distances of your consciousness, and it helps you work there, instead of on the surface level. And I would watch America's Got Talent, and I would never talk to anybody about this because I felt so stupid, and I would feel gratitude towards like when the acts were really good. I remember this one kid taught himself how to do those aerial things, in his backyard. And he's doing this stuff like 20 feet off the thing. I'm bawling like a baby. I'm high as hell, but I'm like bawling, like, it's so beautiful, man. There's so much beauty in the world. I love this kid. I'm just like losing it. And I felt bad. Like I wouldn't tell anybody that, but now I love that, because I get to laugh at myself. I get to laugh at something silly, and but it's also understanding that the stupid is okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right. They're so stupid.
what you said is so great because we're talking about art, and that's how I feel like when I see something incredibly beautiful or read a poem or something. Like art communicates with feeling and it hits you. And so how beautiful if your life did that every day where you're crying and going like, "Oh my god, this is beautiful. I'm connected. Everything's amazing." Which it is. There's miracles everywhere we look. But to live in that place all the time, I mean, that's success, right? That's what we want, I think, as human beings, is to feel alive and connected.
Yeah. And we should feel connected, not just with each other, but I mean, with nature. Whatever way you come at it, if you come at it from an evolutionary standpoint or even a creationist standpoint, we come from the earth,
Yeah.
so we are connected with that. But we see everything like we stop seeing the world around us.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I loved about Sadhguru is he talks about spending time and just watching an ant for an hour.
Mhm.
You know, um, I try to get into the woods like once a week, and I went out to my secret spot. Um, where I always like invite people, like, you going to go hike? I have this perfect spot. We're all alone. There's a herd of deer, and I'm like, and no one can hear you scream. You know? Um, and I was out there and I was smoking, and I saw this like a flying ant pulling a dead spider like to its thing, and it was so fascinating. I just watched it for like a half hour as I was sitting there, and we don't do that. We're disconnected from nature, and we were plugged into whatever the economy or producing.
Yeah, the news, work, or computers, or email, right? All these things
Yeah.
that ultimately aren't good for us, right? In a direct way like nature is. It's not actively healing us. It might be an ends to a mean, right? But nature is actively healing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in my garden because for me, my garden's where I spend my space, and I always, smoke weed, and my garden's amazing. But I had like 10 little butterflies on this patch of daisies yesterday. And I went and got my husband because I'm like, babe, you just got to experience this. Like, this is so cool. Like, let's just stand here for a minute. You never see that many butterflies in one little location. It was like a miracle. It was so cool to experience.
Yeah. And the more you recognize that, the more you begin to see it.
Yes. Yes. But your life has to be slow enough to allow for the opportunity. Because when I think back to when my husband and I were both working 60 hours a week, and driving everywhere and shuttling our son and this, we would have walked past those flowers 100 times and never seen the butterflies.
Yeah.
Like a fast-paced life simply does not allow for magic. And maybe my opinion will change in the future, but right now, that's a rule for me. Like, I don't think it's possible for us as humans to live the way that this world is pressuring us to live and embrace the magic of just being and being part of this amazing thing we call life and
Yeah.
nature, right?
Yeah, and I get it. Like, I mean, we have to make money. We have bills to pay. We have to feed ourselves, like meet those needs. But for the majority of human existence, we were hunter gatherers, and on average, they work about 4 hours a day. And the rest of the time is socialization, maintenance of their stuff. But while they're doing that, they're socializing. And there was more, so there was more downtime, and we've kind of reversed that,
Yeah,
just with industry, because that has to constantly be moving 24 hours a day to meet the demands.
yeah,
So we have to take that purposeful action to slow ourselves down, take a step back, take a breath, and start to recognize what is around us.
yeah. And it might mean that your kids aren't in activities 5 days a week. And it might mean that you don't go to the gym every day or you don't meet with your, like, the pressure on us in society is insane. Have a job, have hobbies, have a side hustle, do all these things for your kids. Make sure to do all your own self-care, be the good partner to your, like, it would be impossible. You don't have enough time to do all the things that you're told that you have to do to be a good person. You can't. So
Yeah.
you have to change the definition in your own head of what a good person is or success is. Throw away the one that culturally you're told, right? And make your own.
And that's such a beautiful thing, and I think that's what is going on too with us with this podcast, is taking that time to reflect, to look on your beliefs, and to question, like, was this given to me? And if it was, if it aligns with you, great.
Yeah.
Or did I choose this? And even with that, if you did, is it still true for you? Does it still align? I mean, beliefs can align for a season. you
Yep.
know
Absolutely.
with all my issues with growing up in strict Christianity, I'm grateful because I have Sandy and I have my girls.
Yeah.
Again, like, things can exist in two different places. I think in quantum mechanics they call it superposition. I could be completely wrong, but I want to start really learning about that stuff. So that time could be bad and amazing at the same time. And
Yeah.
what matters is where I direct my energy.
Hmm.
If I direct my energy to, I hated all of this stuff, I wasted 40 years of my life, whatever, then I'm gonna feel like shit.
Yep.
But if I look over here and I think and I focus on the good times that I had, because even though I lost all the friends that, like, everybody, like, took off, I don't blame them. I was an asshole at the time, but I still had good times with them,
Mhm.
you know.
Still part of your story. That's
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. So what matters is what we decide to focus that energy on.
Yeah. I was challenged with energy focus this week in regards to what we've been talking about and going through, where I have felt a lot of discomfort this week, mental and emotional discomfort. And there's this pull to, there's this thought in my head that says, this is uncomfortable. You clearly don't know what you're doing or where you're going. So you better just bounce back and start doing things the same way you've done them for 45 years. Right? because I don't know what the next step looks like. And so my brain is so, like, the brain doesn't like not knowing. So it will go to its last knowing. And you have to say, no, I'm going to stay uncomfortable right now.
Yep.
And that's the place I've been in all week because I know things are moving and changing for me and my business and our podcast. I don't really know what it's going to look like. And my brain's freaking out. And I'm just sitting here letting it, right? Because that is how you move forward sometimes.
Yeah.
And nobody ever talked to me about that part of the process, like that little uncomfortable blip between not anymore and not yet, and how to just sit there and wait, which seems so counterintuitive.
Yeah. And when you fight against that uncomfortability, when you fight like to shore up the walls of your comfortability, that's when you start living reactive,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
because then everything is a threat. Like everything is a threat.
yes. Yeah.
Somebody cuts me off, or somebody misunderstands what I say, and I'm like, why? Oh, you think I'm a liar? You know, something like everything that doesn't go my way sets me off. But when you're open to that uncomfortability, it's so funny you said that because these last 2 weeks have been so interesting since we've decided to do this. I fought with that, like going back to old habitual thoughts, pushing myself onto this. Got stuck in this thing where I wasn't doing anything except trying to fix my own mindset, kind of settle in this new belief system I'm taking on. But then just also, dude, I got bit by a dog, like out of no, I mean, it wasn't bad at all. And I think it was my fault. It was one of those like sheep herding dogs. And I was talking to the guy, and I think I got too close. And so it jumped, and I thought it jumped out of excitement, but it hit me so hard it like bruised me. And I read that those types of dogs will many times use their bodies to bully,
Right.
like when they're hurting. And so after he did that, I stepped forward again, and it was just a nip, because like if he could have pulled like my wrist off if he wanted to, but it was just like a little nip, like a pinch that left like these marks. Guy was like, she's never done that. She's never done that. So I started reading up. I'm like, I think that was my fault, actually. I think I just like kind of triggered thousands of years of breeding in this thing. But yeah, it's been almost like a challenging week,
Mhm,
couple of weeks. And it's really and it's just settling into that.
mhm. And trusting that the answer is going to come and the next step is going to come, because there has to be empty space for it to arrive. And that's, I think, what this like uncomfortable stages between not anymore and not yet is, the draining of like old ideas, old belief, grief, and saying goodbye to that. And then once you clear that spot and do that work, the new thing comes in and fills that empty space.
All right, you just like blew my mind when you said trusting that the answer will come. So I've had this lesson from mushrooms that I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know where it fit into my life, and it just snapped into place when you said that. And this is so freaking cool. So a lot of times I'll think about that whole idea of flow, just being more fluid, not, I mean, physically, mentally, emotionally, like in all aspects of life. And one of the things like with mushrooms is when I was in fact looking at a brick wall once, and where all the mortar kind of outlines the brick, colors were coming out of that, almost like an electromagnetic field looking thing, and it was all the colors of the rainbow. And it was fascinating, and I was so fixated on it. And then it would change,
Mm,
and I would be so upset that it would change. And then finally I started thinking, that's the deal, though. Nothing is set, nothing is eternal. accept this idea of change, and we try to fight to keep everything in this homeostasis, and that you can't.
Yeah.
So when you said trusting that the answer will come, I really think it's more of like trusting that the answer is in
Mm,
this moment, each moment, following that intuition, following that thing that gives you more passion, that's the answer.
yes. Yes. Yeah. That is more accurate, I think. And the truth is I just found that last night because I've been having a lot of anxiety recently. And last night it was really bad. And so I sat down and I was like, what's happening inside of me right now? And I realized that it wasn't anxiety like the rug's going to be pulled out from under me or I'm going to lose this job or something's bad's going to all those bad things are going to happen thoughts. I have those all the time. But usually my response to those thoughts is I could handle that if that happened. I could handle that if that happened. But anxiety totally disconnects my ability to access my resilience. So all of my thoughts are like, yeah, and if it happens, you'll never be able to find another job again. Yeah, and if like and that's kind of what you're saying is that like that connection to your core and to self-trust and knowing and your your intuition, that is what's guiding, right? And what I recognized last night was that that's what seems to be missing when I feel anxious or disrupted. And that's why I'm anxious.
And that's why anxiety can be such a beautiful thing. We hate the way it makes us feel, so we put it in the bad category.
Yeah.
But our brains are so amazing that without any effort, without any like purposeful focus on something, our brains try to keep us safe. So all of that, it makes us feel horrific, but it's doing it to protect us because it sees uncomfortability as damage, and constant damage equals death.
Right.
And our brain's not going to, or it's going to do everything it can to not get to that point.
Yeah. So it's not about ending it, it's about the relationship you establish with it. And last night it ended up being two gifts for me. One was like a deeper knowledge that I just told you about. And then I did a little like self-trust meditation. And then I went to my husband and shared all that with my husband and asked for him to like really show me that I was lovable because when I'm anxious, I feel like I'm not. So I got two gifts last night out of feeling shitty and anxious because I didn't run away from it, right? I actually leaned into it more.
And I love that you went to your husband like for that little bit of a foundation, you
Yeah.
know, and that gets lost in couples, especially with guys. Like I always have to be the rock, and well, sometimes I don't feel like the rock. I mean, sometimes I feel very beat up.
Yeah, I think that individualistic belief system and cultural idea that you should be able to do it alone and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be strong is so incredibly damaging to all of us collectively because we're meant to be there for each other. We're meant to hold each other up. And there's so much shame around that because it's not culturally accepted. I even said that to my husband. I'm like, right now, I'm sitting in shame. I'm embarrassed to tell you I feel unlovable. But more than that, I want to connect with you. And yeah, I I hope for the future that we can change that and go back to more of a tribal idea of, hey, we all need each other.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's actually imperative for the survival of our species.
Yes. 100%. It's so strange, like how on the same page we always are. Because I was just thinking that. I was like, how do we can't go back to hunter gathering days. Just everybody starts wandering around and like little like there it would be traffic jams everywhere just with people, so we're in the society we're in, and this is what we have to work in, but it's that tribal mindset,
Yes.
so all right, I'm at work and I don't like my job, but I have to, I have to do it. I'm not passionate about it or something like that. But in that moment, you're always confronted with that choice. Like, what can you see that does ignite that? And I think that's how we start creating art with our lives.
Yes.
When I was in school and I took an art appreciation class, like we saw this one thing, the guy makes videos, and they're in museums, and I don't get it. He wears full hockey gear, walks into a pond that in the summer, and he starts smacking a pineapple with a hockey stick. And this is in museums all over the country. And the write-up on it said that he's challenging the concept of man versus nature. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's words, but it doesn't say anything.
Uh,
And I realize, like, art is all in the way that you present what you're doing. So I wrote like my paper on this class. I wrote a story about how I'm also an artist, and I used a story of like being in the military at a weekend party that lasts from Friday till Monday, people throwing up in the stalls creating art, like, our canvas is the porcelain bowl, all that stuff. And if we just follow our passions in the moment, finding that thing, whatever it is, even if it's a memory,
yes.
we begin to create. And that's what art is.
Hmm.
Doesn't have
Yeah.
to be accepted by everybody, but art is creation.
Yeah. And I think that if you are into manifesting or believe in that sort of thing, that's the key to it. And I have a story in my past where I was really into the law of attraction, and I used to work at a fish market. So all day long, I'd fillet fish and slug fish, go home smelling like fish every day. And what I wanted to be doing was the type of work I'm doing now, coaching, mediating, right? Like connecting with people, changing people's lives. And I had a friend that told me, well, how can you do all those things at the fish market? That's how you do it. You water the seed of that there. So I started having deeper conversations with customers, going out of my way to make everybody's day, right? Started to add the elements that I thought I had to wait to have until I was a coach. And then it happened faster, right? Because I was watering the seed of that which was already there instead of waiting. So I think that's key for art, and it's key for creating anything, is finding the beingness of it in the now and watering that passion and that love and that, attraction that you have to something in this world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like creation or creating is always there. Something outside of us that we tap into instead of in us that is expressed through us. I mean, or maybe it's just both of those things at the same time.
Yeah. I love that you said creating is always there, because a lot of times I'll tell clients there's no standing still. You're either walking towards your goal or you're walking away from it. And it's this illusion that, like, you're standing still. And it's a harmful illusion because it keeps you from getting to your goals. So that's what you're saying is creation's always happening. Like evolution is happening, creation's happening, and you're either helping guide it, right? And leaning into it, or you're just allowing like whatever weirdness to come up. I had a bunch of mushrooms come up in the middle of my flower bed. I don't know why, right? But you're like mushrooms and flowers and squash and right.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it'll be messy if you don't put some like intention into it.
right. Yeah, just thinking like like great artists talking about their muses. A muse is like it connects you
Mhm.
with that.
Yeah,
It's there, and it can be anything.
yeah.
literally be anything in the moment, and but you have to be prepared for that. You know what I mean? Like staying in a place of openness to accept that experience that becomes the muse that connects you with creation.
Yes. Yes. I'm also gonna add to that. I mean, a muse can be anything. It can be my garden, it can be a poem. It can also be another human. And I think we are so terrified of intimacy, and there's so many weird thoughts about like being emotionally or spiritually intimate with someone who's not your partner, that we just avoid all these connections. And I think a lot of us keep ourselves from opening doors that were meant to open because we're scared of the depth of the relationship. I know that's true for me,
Yep.
right? To really be seen, to be known, to really see the other person, to manage hardships as they come. Because if you're going to enter into relationship with someone, it's not going to be all rainbows and unicorns because that's not the way relationships work. So you're signing up to work through hardships. And, we're a tribe and we need each other. And also, it's very scary, like to need each other and to move into that. That's one of the things I loved about, Jarrett and his call was how open and willing he was to allow everybody to fall in love with him and to fall in love with everybody else. And it didn't mean anything about his beautiful wife and daughter. And it didn't mean anything about, right? It didn't mean anything other than the love human beings and nature all naturally have for each other.
Man, I mean, just think about that. Like what you said, just how we're afraid of how good the relationships can get, and staying in our comfort zone is being afraid of how good life can be. And just thinking about those intense feelings of, but good feelings of love, of gratitude, of peace, of joy, how intense that can get. I mean, that can be a very intimidating thing.
Yes. I've also, as much as I've been trying to make myself stay in discomfort, I've been trying to force myself to stay longer in those feelings. Like they're
Yeah.
really good feelings, I was trying to describe love to myself in my head the other day. Like when I'm with my husband and we're in those moments of love, like what's happening? Like the air feels thicker. My cells feel like they're merging with other cells, right? You feel light and it feels thick at the same time. Like that feeling of love is like gooey, right? And that's such a beautiful feeling. And much of my life, I've shrunk back from it. And not just with my husband, right? Or partners, with my garden, with my friends, and I've been trying to force myself to stay in those places longer.
And one of the coolest experiences I had with mushrooms, I was in the woods and I was looking, my eyes just kind of glanced over and in between a tree and a branch, there was a spider web. It was really cool looking. I was looking at it for a minute. And when I looked away, like a spider web, you barely see the web. You only really see it because like the sun is like reflecting off of it in some way or and I saw those webs even fainter, but they were everywhere. I mean, they were so overwhelming. I felt like if this was actual reality, I wouldn't be able to move, but and this is going to sound weird, but this is like my thought on it is they are real. They're just in a different higher dimension than I can normally see. And that's why I can move through it and not interact with them. Or I interact with them and I don't realize I am. But in the moment, what I was thinking about was these are the strings of emotion of all the things that we feel, and we have such a small amount of words to describe the emotions on this infinite spectrum of what they actually are. And alls it is connecting with that thread, pulling on that string of like consciousness of love and holding on to that and plucking it, making that vibration. So at
Mhm.
any point, I can feel that. I can spend time in those emotions just by setting my intention to reach out and pluck that thread.
I love that idea of plucking a thread because I've always loved, um, like my son played the bass, so he had the big stand-up bass, and you lean your body against it and you pluck the string and you feel all the vibration and it feels so good. And so that's very visceral for me to imagine. Like, you're right, that's what it feels like when I pluck the string of compassion or love or kindness or even self-love in the form of boundaries. Because that just happened to me is I had a situation with a client that I was uncomfortable with. I felt powerless. And then I found a way to establish my boundaries. And when I did that, it was like, ding, right? Like everything came to rest again.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And what was when before you made that decision, how was your mind telling you like you're gonna screw something up or this is
Oh,
gonna turn
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And a lot, like when I looked deeper at it, and broke it down, it was more like, I'm a child and this other person's an adult. They know more than me. I don't have the right to stand up to them. I don't have the right to take up space or assert my needs in this situation, right? It was like a cowering, people pleasing child. And I was identifying with it. And then I was like, wait a second, that's not who I am. I'm the professional in this situation. I have the right to say what is not working for me in this relationship, but it took me it took me a while to remember that
Yeah.
and to pluck that string and reach out for that.
Dude, we should make that like a logo for the new vibe of the show. Like some like hippie looking dude playing the bass, but instead of like musical notes, like love, peace is coming out of the
Love
bass.
that. You should work with the AI stuff and see if you can get something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try to do that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love fantasy. We've talked about that a lot. There's not a lot of American fantasy to be found, so I find myself watching a lot of foreign TV shows. And there's this new Turkish show on Netflix called The Gift. It's absolutely amazing. It's actually about Goglia Tepe. I never say that archaeological site, right? In
Yeah,
Turkey.
yeah.
And so it's kind of based off like magic and wonder of like a real archaeology you know, site. And one of the things there's like this woman who is sort of connected to the earth and connected to this site. And one of the things she says is if you learn to listen to the language of the earth, it has so many things to tell you.
Mm,
And you reminded me of that when you were talking, right? It's like that's another language we've forgotten, right? Or connection that we've forgotten that has so much wisdom for us. Somebody told me this morning they have a rule that there's no shoes in their garden. And I thought, I actually love that. I might do that.
yeah. I that's awesome. Yeah.
Is I mean, there's science behind how walking barefoot on dirt is beneficial to you. It's no longer just a woo-woo concept of energy. We
Yeah.
actually get that it changes, the way we feel on the inside.
Yeah, I know Jared did a video on that, like walking on the beach. And he was talking about how it releases free radicals
Oh,
I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
yeah.
I thought that was only what is it, Welch's grape juice or something? Antioxidants and the free radicals and stuff.
Yeah, one of the other things I was thinking about is, so listeners, Keith and I both attended a call with Soul of Jarrett where he talked a little bit about how relationships and marketing look on social media. And I was telling my husband that it actually has the energy more of like the old trade and barter tribe feeling. Like, hey, I can do these things. Oh, you can do these things. Okay, great. Like, I'll do these things for you. And like, even though there's still money being exchanged, it's very different than this, I would say, current, soon to be outdated model of I'm the expert on this one thing and I'm above you and you're below me and you come to me for my wisdom, right? It's more like everybody's equals and everybody's trading what they know. And that really helped it like sink in like, oh, I get how that's different.
Yeah, that was so helpful.
Yeah.
That was so, because that was one of the judgments I had on myself is, I don't have all these credentials. I don't have 18 letters after my name and all that stuff. But, like when he said, like, don't be an expert, you
Yeah.
know, and how we've turned being an expert into meaning a specific thing, but we're all experts on our experiences,
Yes. Yep.
you know,
Exactly.
but we have to be also aware too that what worked for me might not work for you, or something that didn't work for me might work for you.
Hmm.
So not being married to the fact that this is what this is how I came out of all my crap. So this is the only way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea that my knower works for me. My knower doesn't work for you, right? It doesn't work for anybody else. And that's how it is. It's always an inside job. So the best way we can help people is tell them about how we got closer to our knower. Oh, I slowed down my life. I started meditating. Right? And we say these things not to try to like control somebody else, but to try to give ideas about how to get more in touch with your own self.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, with people that like, oh, I tried meditation. I can't do it. Can't do it. Okay, great. You
Right.
tried one form,
Mhm.
but for like all the gym rats, like, I mean, going to the gym, throwing your headphones on and being in that complete focus where you lose all thoughts, that's meditation,
Yep. Yeah.
so
Be
there's a way.
motorcycle riding, bike riding, like whatever you want your thing to be,
Yeah.
finding.
I was just watching, I was smoking before we did this, and I was just watching a video on the different dimensions, trying to get some type of very small understanding of what they are and what you can do in them and stuff. But the guy was talking about if somebody in the third dimension reaches down into the second dimension. So I put my finger into a 2D world. A 2D creature is not going to see my finger as it is,
Mm.
because as it is three-dimensional. They're going to see slices, infinite slices of my finger, like, so the 2D slices, and then there's going to, it'll appear like it's like an infinite thing to them. And I have no idea what I was about to say.
You made me think of just
Hold
how,
on.
yeah, like that I have access to other dimensions where I can see things differently and I don't even know it. But I'm seeing things on this plane this way, assuming that's the way they are.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Oh, dude, you're awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So even like the light spectrum, we see the visible light spectrum, which is such a small amount of the totality of it, and our experiences, there's an infinite amount of sectioned out pieces that we experience, but we take it as the whole of our existence.
Yes.
So success is going to look different for everybody. I just read an article talking about how, that saying money is the key to happiness. And it was like, study finds that actually it's kind of reversed. Happiness is the key to, more successful people are happy, or something like that was the article was getting into. So it starts with that internal side, but the one little subsection of our reality is not our whole.
Yeah.
It's but being open to all of those.
Yeah. I think the thing with money that does not get talked about is that it has a drastic input for, like, I don't know, the bottom 10%. If you're cold and hungry and you get a blanket and your stomach filled, your satisfaction in life is increasing exponentially, right? But then after everybody gets on a plane of my basic needs are taken care of and I'm no longer living hand to mouth or scared of what's coming next, above that, money doesn't do a whole bunch. Like it loses its ability to impact happiness. But nobody thinks that way. They just think it's going to be more happiness. But it's kind of like the drunk who thinks, "Oh, I'm just going to keep having drinks and I'll keep feeling better." As, no, at some point you're going to feel real, real bad. And I think that is how money is.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen so many studies that show anywhere between like 70 and 90,000, like in that area, it you'll find the happiest people, the
Yeah.
most content people, you know, and because the problem gets like when all our needs are met at such a high level, again, I mean, it's a financial principle. Like if we saturate the market with money, money loses its value. So
Mhm.
when we saturate our lives with a sense of safety, then it's almost like danger or unsafety kind of loses the value that it is. So we begin to see everything is unsafe.
That is a really good, you should write that down. That is a really good thought. Yes, I love that thought. That is so true. Yeah. So thinking about work as art and life as art, let's talk about something we want to take away or lean into or try this next week. That's different, new. Maybe our listeners want to try or come up with their own thing.
I want to get into being more open, speaking how I want to speak, because I judge myself as like, this is going to sound stupid. Even some of the stuff I said here, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to smoke before we came on,
Yeah.
especially with the new vibe, I wouldn't even use the word vibe, because most of the time, like when people use that word, I'm like, oh, just shut up, man. Like everything is vibes, you know what I mean? But it's a cool word. It's got a good vibe to it. And get into, because I lost my drive, my motivation to post things. Um, and I want to get into posting things that are real instead of sterilized versions. I don't want to just do like, here's a coaching strategy, focus language physiology. Like to me, that falls flat.
Yeah.
I want to show that through somehow,
Hmm.
you know. So yeah, that's gonna be like my focus this week, the thing I really want to lean into, and then because what screws me up is when I think about it as, okay, I got to do this, it's work, I get fixated on time and how I don't have the time to do everything that I want to do.
Yes.
And when I'm focused on that, I tend to procrastinate more, which sabotages the time that I do have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that relationship with time is kind of my focus. And I was going to say quality over quantity,
Yeah.
because right now I pretty much live and judge myself on quantity. How much did I get done today? Not how beautiful was what I produced, whether it was my relationship with my husband or my house or my marriage or my son, but wherever I put my focus, how beautiful did I make those moments of my life? And yeah, my brain tells me, you cannot live that way. It's not practical. You will not get enough done. And then I tell my brain, I'm going to try it for 1 week, brain. If it doesn't work, we'll put you back in charge and we'll start doing a lot, right? And my brain says, okay. Sometimes my brain likes a time limit of an experiment so that it doesn't harass me as much, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this week I want to make everything I touch as beautiful as I can.
That's awesome, man. I love that. And that's just the key. Every moment we have, just making it the best that we can, no matter, it doesn't matter what we're doing or have to do or anything.
Mm-mm.
It's just accepting the moment for what it is and experiencing it fully.
Yep. And I know you and I have brought this up before, the David Sedaris story about being in line at the grocery store and asking the person when was the last time they touched a monkey.
Yeah, yeah.
For him, that was the most beautiful that he could make that moment. I mean, I listened to his master class and his whole life is about how can it impact his art, right? Because he's a writer and that is everything about his life. And he talks about living his life as an artist, and that's it, right? Engage in weird conversations with people, right? Whatever it is, it's going to make that moment beautiful to you.
You know, I'm glad you brought up David Sedaris. If you want to do some homework and watch someone who lives in making the most out of every moment, and creating with every moment, David Sedaris. I mean,
Yeah.
even to the most embarrassing things, he happily shares them so that we can all laugh with him because he laughs at that. He doesn't judge himself. He told the story of, he was in France, um, and he had to go to the doctor. And so he went in to the room. They gave him the gown, which doesn't close in the back. And then like afterwards, he had to go into another sort of room, and he made a wrong turn and he opened it up and it was another waiting room, but there was no one in there. And so he was like, oh, I guess that's the way they do it here. So he's sitting down in the little Johnny, with his ass hanging out, and then people fully clothed just walking off the street or walking in, and he's sitting there half naked in this gown. Um, and and then he realized, like, he walked out of the office and into a different waiting room, and everybody just looked at him like he was insane.
Right. Yeah.
But he tells that story and puts it in a book, and of all these just stories like that,
Yeah.
we're just looking at his life and looking at the absurdity of it all and then finding beauty in that. He had one story of his brother and his dad sitting through a hurricane eating a bucket of candy. And his brother had this line that was like, sometimes you just got to say, fuck it, watch it come at you while you're eating a bucket of candy. And I was like, yes, sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yep. Yeah. I love it. All right. Anything else to add before we close?
I'm excited for this new chapter, man.
Yeah, me too. Me
It's gonna
too.
be good.
Yep. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are so grateful for all of our listeners. Please support us in doing what we love. It's as simple as hitting that like or subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to us. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week.